Hi, everyone. Welcome to the MBV podcast. I'm Jeremy Gardner from mindbodyvortex.com, and I am your host for this series. This is the very first episode that we are launching, and I'm very happy about our guest today. Katie McIntyre is the founder of MindBody here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. After majoring in sports medicine, Katie embarked on a journey fueled by her desire to better understand the link between the mind and body, particularly in terms of physical performance. Through her experience working with hundreds of people in athletics, injury prevention, and rehabilitation, Katie was drawn deeper into the mind-body connection when she noticed a striking pattern of how self-image can actually influence the physical domain of the body and ultimately how we experience life. Now as a holistic therapist and life consultant, today Katie is helping all types of people break through self-imposed limitations in order to find personal freedom and achieve amazing changes in all areas of life. Katie believes that all change must come from within, and her 360 approach to holistic healing definitely echoes that statement. In this conversation, we're going to discuss the mind-body connection in terms of emotional process, as well as how our belief systems play a significant role in how we function as human beings and as individuals. This is going to be very interesting, and I'm very happy to be able to share this conversation with you. Let's get into the interview. It smells fantastic in here, I just must say. Katie, what does that smell?
On Guard by doTERRA.
And what is in there exactly?
4 essential oils that I don't know the names.
You don't know exactly what they are? Well, they smell beautiful and they make me feel fantastic. So
I'll use it tonight also then.
Awesome. So we're here with Katie McIntyre from MindBody Montreal. And Katie, thanks so much for having us back here. The first time we were here not too long ago, I really enjoyed our conversation. And I look forward to continuing that conversation and diving a little deeper into what it is that you do here at MindBody. Now, I know these topics at first glance may seem to be a little bit complex to some people, and I really appreciate how you're able to articulate them. And as I begin to uncover some of these things, I find it very fascinating how practical and relevant these things are for all of us. So would you be able to, just to give some context here, kind of briefly describe what it is you do here?
Yes. So my mind-body program consists of 4 therapeutic techniques. The first is called core belief engineering, breath work, eccentrics, which is essentially exercise, and body work. And so that is the holistic approach I use to help a person discover themselves, develop, change, and create a reality that is more advantageous for how they want and see themselves.
That's great. So you work with, who is it that you have been working with, and who is it that comes to see you here?
So typically I work with people that are aware of themselves but see that they can reach a higher potential within what they are currently at in their state. So that could be anyone in any category, and they can see, I have chronic pain, or, I can only make a certain amount of money, I can never make above that, or I get performance anxiety, or I generally have anxiety all the time, I feel insecure. But these people have identified with that and are ready to work on that seriously. And it's because they believe they can change. They believe that they're not reaching their potential, but they know the potential is there. And that's typically everyone I work with.
So this is kind of like it sounds like they're already on some type of path or some type of, is this some type of realization or a breakthrough that is already taking place in their lives that leads them to come see you? Or is this kind of like not so much of a last resort, but things are kind of rough. They're looking for kind of like a way out of their current situation, or
yeah, exactly. They're looking for a way out of their current situation, and they have not found it yet.
Okay. So when they come to see you, what are some problems that you notice that are quite? You mentioned financial issues, not being able to kind of take the next step in terms of career path, or are these reoccurring themes that you see quite often come up?
Yes, people generally, when they want to improve themselves, are living in a state of either anxiety, worry, fear. They have difficulty understanding, they have difficulty performing, they have difficulty expressing themselves, like whichever category of self, which encompasses mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual, any limitation that they are fed up with and want to start living their life within a perception that is possible in their minds, and they're just not getting there. That's the people that I work with.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the beliefs, right? And that's kind of what we're going to get into a little bit in this conversation. And so these are when people hit a kind of a wall in their lives. And you said the word fed up, right? And this is something that we've all felt like that. Just tired of how things are, or why are things continuing to be like this for me? These are usually when things start to become noticeable in our lives. So there's kind of like the beginning of an awareness taking place. But at that point, it seems like they know that something needs to be changed, but not quite sure what it is, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes they might come in to see you with an idea of what the problem might be, but it might turn out to be kind of something else. It might just be a result of what the real problem is. So what does that process kind of look like for just kind of digging through these things and trying to see what is really going on here?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So I come from the premise that at the root of an experience of the existence of life, I'll go to so far to say that is a belief. So that's the premise that anything can be born or exist from, and often we don't see that the beliefs themselves create thoughts, which then create behaviors or emotions. And from these behaviors and emotions, that's what creates reality. So often somebody might come in with just explaining their reality. And then we can say, okay, so how does that make you feel? And then from how does that make you feel, what do you think about that? What do you think about this topic of your reality? And from what do you think of that, what is the belief that's holding that? Mm-hmm. What is that platform that is having your reality be created in this way? And through that, they're able to see, wow, I have a belief that I don't trust myself. And because of that, I'm thinking everybody's against me, or I'm messing up, or things are happening to me and it's all my fault. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to fix it. And this is how you feel. You feel frustrated. You feel down on yourself, or depressed, or anxious. And then you think, what am I going to do about this? And I don't trust that I can actually do something about this. And then from there, it's like, so the main belief is I don't trust myself. Yeah. And with that, we could start to explore how I don't trust myself infiltrates all of you. Mm-hmm. How does it affect your money? How does it affect your relationships? How does it affect you if you're a parent? Or how does it affect your relationships with your family or business? Or where does that play out in your life? And often seeing the core belief and seeing through that filter is a huge moment of awareness to say, wow, so it's really the belief. And some people think, well, I believe that my whole life. That's who I am. They've identified it's become self. And because it's become self, it's become vulnerable, and it's become precious, and it's become ownership, and you identify with that.
Something concrete.
Exactly. Yeah. And with that, that's where people have a harder time to change on their own. Mm-hmm. Because that takes a process to guide gently and skillfully through discovering that actually you're not that.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. And so like there's so many different aspects of our life. Like you said, there's, the financial things, and the way that these problems or these beliefs manifest in the form of negative experiences might be distracting what is really going on. And I know just from experience and just talking to some different people how the frustrating part can come from changing something, but like you said, there's a process involved. So changing the behavior or changing the emotion might not be enough to kind of get deep enough to figure out where that behavior or emotion is even coming from in the first place. And is that the belief, like the thought that is triggering these things? Is that are we getting into the belief system there?
What I hear you saying is a great point in that we have become masters at coping.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get to a core belief, it is how you've identified as yourself for a very long time. So it is, as I said, very precious, and that's what you know. And we want to hold on to what we know because that identifies our stability and our strength within ourselves.
Yeah.
But if we just, now I saw my emotion, let me stop, let me breathe, let me not do that, we are actually coping and adding layers and layers onto more energy taken up to attempt to not be a certain way.
Yeah.
When yes, if you got to the core of the belief that holds it all up, you wouldn't have to cope, because the typically limiting beliefs you're coping with anyway, because it is not innately you, it's limiting. So you have to adjust yourself to compensate for that belief.
Yeah.
So if you hold the belief that I'm not lovable, you might be constantly looking for love and working very hard to find out and figure out how you can be lovable.
Yeah.
And so
like love, for example, I know that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I'm sure that's something that that you hear quite often.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it is seeking the essence of love, and love of self, love of others, love of the universe.
So in terms of love, I just want to touch on this quickly. What have you found? What would be the belief holding somebody back from being able to connect with someone?
Oh, that I can have a whole other podcast on.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you mentioning that last time.
Holding back from somebody connecting on. I'll just throw a couple out there to think about. So I'm not lovable is a great one. So how do you connect with someone that loves you if you believe you're not lovable?
Yeah.
I am not worthy enough of love. Then you're in a relationship and not actually receiving the love. It's very frustrating for the other person, and they can never connect with you fully, I can't love others because it hurts. Love hurts. I mean, lots of people have the belief love hurts because they've been hurt in their first time and they make a decision, and love hurts, or love is conditional. If I'm good or I do a certain thing, then people will love me. If I please people around me, people will love me.
Mm-hmm.
If I control the situation, I'm in charge, and I show that I'm smart and I show that I'm capable, then I'll receive love.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, and let's look at the other side, where a core belief of I am love, I love me, I am lovable, I am worthy of love. I mean, that's just a whole different space.
Yeah.
Right. And you having that space in you, being that, operates in a relationship totally different.
Yeah, for sure.
Because this is also, I trust my love. I am capable of loving. So you interact with people in your relationships extremely effective in a connection, because you're coming from a place of love that you completely understand and own and have, and it's tangible. It's you feel it inside yourself.
Yeah.
When you've been rejected from love, or you've had to prove yourself to get love, the conditional love, then that pattern plays out, and you start to actually understand within yourself that maybe I don't even know what love is.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't in its innate form, based on your own experience of how you were raised, or where the beliefs come from in society and what we've seen in life in general, in schools and in the media, things like that. And we've made decisions based on those experiences, and those decisions create.
our results, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the essence of what a belief actually is. It's how we react to our reality when we're put in front of a situation. Our past experiences might dictate how we react to it. So core belief engineering. This is kind of the basis of your studies. This is a training program that you study. Can you touch a little bit on that? Just what that means, that the core belief engineering.
Yes, it's its own college in White Rock, BC, and it's a program that is taught like any other school within the education and experience of a process of change. So Ellie Roselle is the founder, and it's been in existence since 1985. She's been doing the work long before, but the college began then. And her process of change has come from a multitude of various sources, as well as her own discoveries on the power of changing a belief. And since then, I mean, back in 1985, and her continuing with this school and society in general evolving, we've heard of many things about how belief, we have biology of belief, we have how beliefs manifest, we have more and more talks about beliefs, and more talks about working as a part model, which is what core belief engineering does, working with yourself, knowing that you're a multitude of parts. So that multitude of parts that is yourself holds beliefs, holds functions, holds decisions, feelings, it holds your thoughts. And so when you operate from that part of yourself, this is what you're operating as. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you're having a fight with your partner and you're in extreme rage, you're super frustrated, you're turning off, you're like, I can't take it anymore, you're compulsive, you're reacting, maybe you're repetitive in your argument, and then the doorbell rings and you answer the door and you're, oh, hi, thanks, how's it going? Oh, great. You completely seamlessly go out of one part into another without a second thought. Mm-hmm. The same happens when we're talking to our boss to maybe performing out in public, or when we're interacting with money and paying for something or negotiating with something. That's very different than when we're snuggling and cuddling with our partner. Yeah. So identifying with these parts and knowing that you can dialogue, you can actually work with them, mm-hmm. I think is the main thing the core belief engineering does, because a lot of other therapies analyze the patterns and analyze what's happening, but we actually talk directly to them
to the parts
of you.
Okay.
We map them, you feel them, we've identified with mm-hmm. them, and we communicate with them.
Cool.
Right. It is super cool.
Yeah. And it's different, right? Because a lot of the one major belief that many of us share is that, like, this is me, right? This is me, and it's kind of almost like a finished product almost. And I like you say aspects of our psyche, and
I would even say ourselves. They're neurologically linked into our body. I could be working with a part of yourself that's not necessarily in your mind or psyche as we identify with it. It could be the self that is in your gut. It could be the self that is in your low back. It could be the self that is on your shoulder. Wherever you process within your physical space is a part of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Very interesting. So, but these parts of ourselves, like we mentioned earlier, like they exist for a reason. We have these responses. Like you said, you can't be fighting with your spouse and then you might have to deal with a completely different situation 2 seconds later. And as human beings, we're very adaptable that way. We're able to kind of shift, right? And these different that's where kind of the conflict comes into play. Approach and avoidance, right? There's certain situations that a part of us would kind of approach, and a different part of us might see the danger in it. And launching a new project, for example, you might be excited, you might be driven by the idea of owning your own business, of changing your life, having a different financial situation. And at the same time, once you start gaining some momentum, the fear of how much work you're going to have to be putting into the changes in your time might cause, another part of yourself to activate, and the fear might take over, right? And what happens is whichever one of those, approach and avoidance, whichever one wins, ends up kind of taking over. So where's the issue there in terms of kind of going towards what we want out of life, and then kind of at the same time staying away from what we know could benefit us?
It's interesting because I do look at it a little bit simpler in terms of the part of you that's motivated to go there. What does it want, need, and believe about that experience? And the part of you that doesn't, what does it want, need, and believe about not going there? And so the question would be, so which one is the actual one that I should be listening to? And many people have this, as you've stated, and it's issues with making decisions, issues with transitions, issues with change. And what I would do is I would map all of it, because it all is a system, this interaction. So, like I said, you can have 50 parts of you believing that you're good enough, and 50 parts of you believing that you're not good enough. And that tug of war between the two,
Yeah,
it's exhausting, and it takes, it's not an efficient system, know, as you can see in your transitions, and things become hard, and things become, so, you would look at that aspect that is, okay, what is consciously your choice? What do you want? With all parts of you, even if, well, most of me wants this, but most of me wants that. And we have to go out of most of both of those.
Yeah.
And go a little bit beyond that,
Yeah.
and say, okay, if you didn't have this system happening, this conflict, what would you really want? Well, I just would, it might be, well, I actually just want to feel good. I just want to feel like I'm a success. Because you're going in a direction or not for certain reasons. But if you take away that actual interaction, that mechanism that is driving you to, probably regularly, as you said, most people probably experience it. If you map that whole system and then remove it and say, if that was gone, what would you be?
Yeah.
And then it's a total different space. And it's a different perception of, how do I want to approach this? Well, it's more of I just want to experience something.
So there's less, would you say there's more of an analysis based on like, what do I really want to do here? Instead of kind of reacting to our natural tendencies to avoid certain situations. It's just basically kind of, like you said, you look at it more of a simple way. Like, what do I want to do here? Do I just want the experience? Do I want to follow this through? So there's like kind of less of an analysis taking place, and just more of a natural following more of our natural tendency. Or
the big question is, which one is the natural?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you've never worked with updating your system, updating your parts, dialoguing with your parts, it's very hard to know what is actually you, and what has been absorbed, and how you've been operating based on what you've learned or gotten from parents or school or the outside world that has been in the system, your system, for many, 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 many years. And you have identified as yourself. So unless you dialogue inside, unless you know how to be guided through the mind and the parts of yourselves in this way, that I have come to realize that core belief does a very safe, effective, and thorough way of doing it, where we've seen results beyond I could imagine, beyond my own limited belief system at the time, beyond that and its potential. And I've witnessed and experienced not only my own change, but all the people that I've experienced and witnessed receiving it. So it is systematically put in place so that you can discover, well, what actually is me? Mm-hmm. Because if you haven't done work in this way, it is very hard to know what is actually you. just based on the way that your program, yourselves, your function has been happening for so long.
Yeah. And especially alone, right? It's hard to work these things out by ourselves. It could be confusing. And
Because each aspect you do say is me, but there's when you break down the certain beliefs and see where they come from, you discover that possibly that one wasn't me. But then you make decisions. So that is you.
Okay.
So along the way, perhaps you've seen your parents fight a lot of times, and you think that's what a relationship is. But you've absorbed the fighting, you've absorbed the sounds, you've absorbed the language, you've absorbed the interaction, you've learned it. Oh, that's what happens to mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
But here you make a decision. I will not do that. I do not like the way that feels. And so inside, you now have that energy, you have the noise, you have the whole interaction that you've absorbed, and you have your decision to say, that is not me. So now I've decided I am not that. And now inside of you, you think I am not that, but you're also carrying that with you. Mm-hmm. So you're always at battle with that. So your actual reference is what you know from your parents, and you've identified yourself by their interaction. But in all reality, that's not yourself. Mm-hmm. If that wasn't interacting at all in that way, and you did not absorb that, you would be in a different state. You would be, no, actually, love is, and relationships, the interaction is easy, and it's clear, and it's cuddly, and it's loving, and it's smooth.
Which would obviously dictate a whole set of, perceptions in terms of relationships, which would also dictate how you respond to relationships a lot differently than if you were, like you said, if you saw your parents fighting all the time. But when you said, this doesn't fit right with me, if I saw my parents fighting, where would that come from? Where would that come from for me to, because we get these feelings all the time, like, this person doesn't fit with me, this job, right? Like, I don't like this job. But what is the pull that keeps us in these situations? Like our comfort zone, as you called it. We know what would benefit us, or we know when something doesn't fit right with us. But what is it that keeps us in the comfort zone?
Unfortunately and fortunately, it's the way we develop. So the vibration and the experience of a young child, in that vulnerability, and as well as the vibration of you being born and growing within the development. I mean, within the womb, within the labor, within the years that you grow up until you become conscious. So, they say the stage that you now can say, I am this, is because before that, you were in a stage of absorbing like a big sponge, mm-hmm. everything around you in order for your mind and yourself to determine who you are. And so how do we function within that? Well, typically we're all little children inside of ourselves that are replaying what we've learned or what we've experienced at a very young age. And it could be anywhere along the way. I mean, a part of you could have been crying you can have a self of you that froze, that said, made a decision, crying, nobody's coming, nobody cares.
Okay, yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
You're 2 years old, nobody cares. Filed into the system, nobody cares. What happens? The baby stops crying. It's pointless. Nobody's listening.
Yeah.
From that direction, there you go. Nobody cares. Don't really, you shift. And this is brilliant when you really think about it. I mean, we're amazing at coping. We're amazing at manipulating. We're amazing at surviving.
Yeah.
And so from that young, vulnerable place, it is a lot about survival. It's about, whoa, my environment does not feel good. I'll hide, or I'll run, or
so it is
mom and dad is not loving me. I'll get sick so that they notice me. And it's a very primitive way of surviving,
Yeah,
because you are
exactly.
primitive. You know, beliefs can be passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
They could be premises and values, you know, given from grandmama that was in the war, or grandpa during the Depression, and they knew that nothing was safe. You could not eat. You know, you had to work hard. You had to survive, and so as we've evolved, you know, what is that safety? But what if there was no need to be safe? Like, what if it was not about being safe? What if it was about being yourself? You know, what if it was about just living? Being safe is a filter. It's a perception. Am I emotionally safe right now to tell you my deepest secret? You know, am I safe to jump, you know, skateboarding through doing a pick and doing this and that?
Yeah.
You know, do I believe my body can do that? You know, is that safe? To somebody, you know, they would look at that and be like, there's no way in hell I'm doing that. But I'll go and I'll yell at my son and be all powerful and think that that's safe.
Yeah.
When that's not a safe environment, you know, manipulating and yelling at children is not a safe environment, you know. But there's that belief of like, okay, so what is safety? And that's a main thing that we're really looking at is
What is your safety zone?
what actually needs protecting.
Yeah.
What about you actually needs to be protecting? And that's where we get to, let's dialogue with the parts inside of you that believe you need protecting.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened to make you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Because before that happened, what were you thinking about yourself?
Mm-hmm.
What were you thinking about life? What were you thinking about other people? Before that happened, you were not concerned about safety. You know, the natural being in the womb, like that's super safe, right? Like if the mother's healthy in natural development, right? In natural, no trauma, things like that. Natural development is, life is super cozy, super safe. There is no real perception of safety. It's just life.
Well, then what is it that scares us so much when we start getting into the jungle of the modern lifestyle and the arena? These, you know, why is safety such an issue? Why does safety hold us back from, you know, doing, you know, quitting the job? Or because this is something, like you said, this is something that benefits us. It's primitive, but our safety is well established. So that's not all we need. Especially now that we have these higher needs, it's something that weighs very heavily on people. This need to just always be secure. What is the first step towards entering that more recent part of the brain, right? Like the prefrontal cortex, the creativity. Once safety is established.
Okay,
That might be a complex question.
I'm gonna make sure I'm in line with your question. Correct me if I'm not. So, going beyond safety.
Yeah.
And how does a person do that? What's great about, in my opinion, what's great about us is everything can boil down to your choice. So if you choose to experience something differently than just being concerned about your safety, and you choose to embark on a new adventure, and you identify that choice to do that is being stopped or blocked or prolonged or not happening, it is your choice to do something about that block. And so safety is a great place to come from, because ideally we would have all came from that. Mm-hmm. In all of our upbringing, we would have all felt safe in society, safe in ourselves, safe in our communication, safe in our ability to love. Ideally, we would have had a perfect blossoming of that experience of safety. And it's not necessarily the case based on the generations before. And now we're evolving to rewrite that so that we can thrive and be less limited.
Yeah.
I think in general, this society is yearning for not to have to work so hard to feel safe and to enjoy and to have the higher needs met, the creativity and curiosity and pleasure without within ourselves that is holding us back. And so what do you do about that? You rewrite that. You process that. You work on that. You find meditation or belief change therapy that then you know whether or not you evolve. You know whether or not you're stuck, right?
Yeah.
And you know whether or not you want to be unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really beautiful aspect of the self. And like you've said, if people come in and they don't really know what it is that's stopping them, coming in and the intent to discover it is the action itself.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of power in that,
Yeah, you said like how we process information. So a lot of these things happen like without our awareness. So a lot of what we were talking about is identifying the problem, identifying something that doesn't fit well with what we want to happen in our lives. But there's also a lot of things that we aren't aware of. A lot of things that affect us in a negative way, oftentimes, that we aren't necessarily aware of. We're actually doing them, or we are actually acting this way. Like they take shape in our daily habits. And you refer to this as the subconscious and the way that we process information. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Some people also identify with the unconscious aspects of self. But for simplicity in the way that I see it, it is unconscious because it's in a void, it hasn't been tapped into. It has some sort of existence, but we're unconscious of it, right? So the subconscious is what's accessible. And when we can consciously, which is the here and now, it's the ability to observe, it's the ability to have choice, make decisions, it's the ability to move, from one place to another. The subconscious is recorded. It has its information accrued through experience and lifetime, and it's the base system, that will allow the conscious here and now to function properly. And so that's an endless record of anything existing in life.
Yeah.
Because we do have all of that information within us. And along the way, we might have closed some doors or shut some windows or decided, like I said before, in going in a certain path. But it doesn't mean that it's lost or gone. It's just that it's not what's
available, or it requires a little bit more investigation or some time to...
Conscious intent,
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a psychologist, Daniel Kahneman. He's notable for his work in decision making, and he refers to them as System 1 and System 2. He actually wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow, and he refers to System 1 as our intuition. So it's how we react to things, and it's how we judge things or draw theories about things, and then actually take action based on our interpretation of things. And what his research is actually famous for is identifying that that's not always in our best interest. Actually, most of the time, it's not in our best interest to just react to things. We require further information. The problem is that it takes a lot more time to just kind of slow down and think and kind of access, like you say, the unconscious, or consciously and intentionally look for the information available to us. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the conflict, right? It's we're programmed to adapt, but we're not always relying on the best information. Mm-hmm. And when we talked last time, we were talking about meditation and the benefit of being more aware and more present. And you refer to that as kind of our gateway to being able to access that information. Can you talk a little bit about that presence and what it means to be aware, so that we can access this file system, as you like to refer to it as?
Mm-hmm. Well, I like how you said, like, the reaction, because we did speak about that in terms of parts being reactive, automatic, predictable. Mm-hmm. And we identify with parts being in the subconscious, in that System 1. And so if we're coming from that automatic, repetitive place as a great function that we have, then we want to make sure, yes, it is in our benefits. So we have to consciously look at the whole benefit structure, if you will, so that we see, okay, my current status The positives of me reacting this way are this. The negatives are this. That's great. Then you look at, okay, but if I want to change this, so I want to trust more, but the positives of not trusting is I won't get hurt. The positives of not trusting is I will not look like a fool, or I won't be embarrassed, and then but if the negatives are I cut people out of my life, and I sometimes am not as social as I'd like to be. So say you want to change that. Well, there are actually positives and negatives in your perception of the change. So ideally you say, oh yes, the positive would be I would be more myself. I feel like I'd be easier to talk to people. I would be more social. But then what are the negatives? Well, I believe, or I'm afraid, or I think that if I do that, people will see who I really am. Mm-hmm. And who is it that I really am? I'm a failure, or I'm insecure. I don't have confidence. I don't believe in myself. And so if they see that, when I put myself out there more and I start to trust them, then that will bring me back into the status, right? So we are able to see that even a perception of change has pluses and minuses, and that's what keeps the whole system in place, is the perceptions that are held based on your own past experience, or imagining what it would be like to change, because we can identify with the change that we want to create, and we can typically identify with what is in us that's holding us back, but we're not sure how that structure is set up that's not allowing it to change.
Yeah.
And that's when we look with the benefit structure, and how you consciously are operating from these beliefs and these parts of yourselves. So you're weighing the pros and cons and saying, well, I like where I am because I don't really like the unknown, and so I'm going to stay here. But when you see why you're staying there,
it starts to make a little bit more sense.
It makes a little bit more sense. But then, you spoke about being reactive and being quick and wanting to just, lots of people in terms of meditating and working with themselves, they will go into a meditation, and then that'll calm them and relax them and whatever they're using their meditation for. And they will access that space, and that space will bring lots of things for them. My other questions would be, well, what happens when you're not meditating? Are you still maintaining that space, or is it hard for you?
Yeah.
Or can you even meditate? So looking at the different levels of your ability to experience and feel what you choose to be experiencing and feeling. Great. So using meditation to access it, and then
not so much as an escape, like this is my detachment from reality, but as a space to calm down and be able to approach reality more proactively and more effectively, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you access, when you're meditating, this nice healing space that is loving, and you feel full, and you feel empty and clear, and then you go and you get in your car and you're stuck in traffic, and you're recognizing all the construction around on the streets, and now you're late for your appointment, where did that go? Are you still in the traffic? Mm-hmm. And so noticing like that part of you that is like, that I can't be late. What would that mean? It would mean I'm irresponsible, and it would mean, so that can trigger another aspect of yourself. Yeah. So when we're looking at this self-development and improving this, a process to do this typically takes 4 to 6 hours to achieve. And when people think, whoa, that's long. And I'm thinking, is it really?
Yeah. In terms of can change your entire life, the way you approach each and every day, yeah.
Right. And you're rewiring something that you've known and done for a long time. So when people work with me, I have them understand, like, we're actually going to work on this, and it's probably going to take you a year, or it's probably going to take you 6 sessions, or, maybe it will take you 5 sessions, or at least commit to 2, and we'll see if it's working for you, because at that point you could already see the changes evolving. But to know that, why I have to take a whole day off to talk with myself, well, this is where we're missing the boat, because it's so far from our reality to take the time to do that, and that we think that is like asking a lot, but here you're just operating. So your system's going to operate if you don't work to change the system. And like we said, the neural network system that's happening and the layers of years and ways of being that way, and whether or not you believe change is easy or difficult, or whether or not you think you're okay or not, all of that is going to determine how you're going to process these changes.
Yeah, and I like how you say positive and negative. So the way our beliefs dictate the way we react to things, and obviously different perceptions would result in different behaviors. So it would always be in our best interest to choose the one that would benefit us. And that includes embracing negativity. Can you talk a little bit about how it would actually benefit us to embrace negativity and not necessarily eliminate negativity altogether from our thought processes?
I hear lots of people saying I don't like negative vibes, and I don't want to be around negative people and things like that. And
very valid argument.
Right, yeah, of course. But yes, there's something, whether it's a belief or an experience, that has said negativity is bad, or negative people are bad, or when you act like that, it's bad. When you feel like that, it's bad. And that has put you in a box, because now that is said, it can bring up judgment, it can bring up shame, it can bring up guilt for anything that you're feeling. And ideally, we want to be okay. We want to know that whatever we're feeling is okay. And it would be great to experience all feelings along the spectrum. They're a right. They're a livelihood right to be able to feel sad, grief, to feel shame, to feel embarrassed, to feel joy and happiness, contentment, enthusiasm, curiosity, sadness, shyness. Like, it's really fulfilling to have the opportunity to know what all those feelings are like. And when you're feeling them, to acknowledge that and be in that is very fulfilling, right? Other than saying, no, I can't feel this way, I have to keep going, and I don't like this person continuing to whine at me, they're just bringing their negativity on me, and they're so negative all the time. But there's something about negativity that affects us. Then if it's really a problem, it would be ideal to not say that the negativity is coming outside of you and they're creating it. It would be good to say, this is triggered within me, frustration, anger, or my own negativity, and then choose, is that what I want to be experiencing right now?
Is it worth getting involved in? And that comes with the awareness, the having control over what emotions we're investing in, and what emotions kind of we can do without almost. But being aware is kind of, instead of getting involved in a negative situation just because we feel compelled to, we actually start to develop more of a choice, more of a, like you say, which brings me to just wrapping up here. I would love to get your take on, first of all, what would be the first step in someone's life to identify happiness on a personal level? So what does happiness mean to you, and what would you tell somebody, or what do you tell the people that you work with, the first few steps in pointing them into the right directions towards happiness?
Okay. You could look at it both ways. You could say, how happy are you? And what does happiness look like for you? And then, where are you not happy? And what does that look like? And so, how much is that playing out? And how much do you want to change that? So if they're coming to fix something, if you will, or improve, then ideally they know that something is not the way they want it to be. But it doesn't mean that they don't experience happiness on some level, and that they can identify what happiness means to them. So happiness has, it's one of those nominalizations like love. It has its own description based on your own identification of it. There is no real definition of it. It is an experience. So can be described in many ways. And the most important thing is to identify what that means to you and to see how often and how much you're in it. And with that, if you want more of it and you're not in it enough, then we work with what's happening inside that is limiting you in achieving that more often.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. So, what makes you happy, Katie?
What makes me happy? What I do makes me very happy, and that is really across the board on everything. Yeah. So I'm really happy with what I do. I have 2 beautiful children. I have a beautiful husband. I have a beautiful home. I have a beautiful job. I have beautiful clients. I have a great health that I'm very happy with, and I'm very happy with my relationships, and I'm very happy with the new experiences that life brings to me all the time. Like the magic of life is super enjoyable. And when you work with beliefs and you start to observe your beliefs and see, like, could I go beyond that? Is that even possible?
Yeah.
I really don't know. But when you start on the journey, it becomes very exciting to see that you can go beyond what you ever thought within yourself, around you, and life in general. You really start to see through the glasses of happiness that essence of life is so unbelievably precious and special, and the creation of it is magical. I mean, it really is. So that's
wow,
how
love
I
that
see
answer.
happiness.
That's great. Well, thanks so much, Katie. I really enjoyed our conversation, and obviously there's a lot more that I would love to get into with you, and I would love to have you back on in the future. And like I said, I always love stopping by. So you can find Katie on Facebook at Mind Body Montreal. You could also find her on LinkedIn, Katie McIntyre. That's right. We'll link that up. And so what's next for you, Katie?
What's next? I'm in the process of change, as always. Changing my home. I'm changing it from the roots up. Yeah. And I'm advancing in business. I host breathwork sessions, and I'm increasing them. And I'm going to work on more social media things and more interactions with people. I'm really looking forward to the transition from this year into the next. It's one of my favorite times.
Awesome. For
everybody to experience that at the same time, changing from one year to the next. I love the power of that. So moving forward into the new year, I'm just looking forward to seeing what clients come my way and what magic we get to create.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. I am Jeremy Gardner from mindbodyvortex.com. This is the MBV podcast. You can find us on Instagram at mindbodyvortex, on Facebook and Twitter. So stay tuned. We have lots more to come. Thank you.